This is a hand-operated squaring shear. Some squaring shears are power-driven. Both types are used to cut sheet metal along straight lines. Cutting flat pieces to size is often the first step in making formed parts. This step is called blanking. The cut pieces are called blanks. When only a few blanks need to be cut, a hand-operated shear may be used. In jobs of this kind, prepare the work at a bench near the shear. Have the template ready. This is an exact pattern of the piece to be cut. On jobs for which a drawing is also used, study the details carefully. Check the accuracy required. In this case, plus or minus 1/32 of an inch. And check the template number. Be sure the template number and drawing number are the same. The numbers checked. This is the right template for the job. Place the template on the sheet metal, bringing it square with the sides. Allow a margin for trim. Draw pencil lines to lay out the cutting pattern. In blanking tapered pieces, it is good practice to use an alternating pattern. Reverse the template, bring it even with the sides and with the layout line. Draw a third pencil line along the lower edge to indicate the cutting pattern. Careful planning of the layout saves material, in this case, aluminum. With tapered blanks to be cut, this pattern will result in minimum waste. The trim at the end of the sheet and at the narrow end of each blank. With the cutting planned, take a stop block and the template to set up the gauges at the back of the shear. On some machines, a block of wood or metal must be fastened to the back gauge to stop the sheet sideways. Loosen the gauge bracket and place the template against the back gauge flush with the stop block. Move it in firmly against the lower knife blade. Now, tighten the bracket on the right-hand side of the gauge. Hold the template in position firmly against the gauge, the stop block, and the knife blade. Tighten the left-hand bracket. The setup for the taper cut is complete. Remove the template. Before bringing the metal to the shear, make sure that the bed is clean. Grit and bits of metal might scratch the aluminum sheet. Aluminum should always be handled carefully. When the metal is placed in position for the trim cut, align the sheet carefully by eye. The setup does not provide for the trim. When the sheet is in line, lower the hold-down handle to press the hold-down firmly against the sheet. Press the treadle down to make the cut. Raise the treadle slowly to release the knife. Raise the hold down. Now, slide the sheet into position for the first blanking cut. Press it firmly against the back gauge and stop block. Lower the hold down and make the cut. The first blank is removed from the bin to be checked with the template. The first cut may not be accurate. In this case, the blank is 1/16 of an inch oversized at the wide end. The setup must be adjusted. One way to do this is to mark the rod at the present position then move the gauge in the required distance. Here, 1/16 of an inch. Tighten the bracket in the corrected position. Turn the sheet over for the next cut. Each cut along the taper leaves the wide end of the sheet opposite to the wide end of the gauge setup. Turning the sheet places the wide end on the same side as the wide end of the gauge setup. With the sheet turned, slide it into position for cutting the second blank. The second blank must also be checked to make sure the setup has been correctly adjusted. The blank matches the template in width. The setup is now correct. The cutting of the remaining blanks can proceed. This simplified sketch will clarify the use of the gauges and the cutting action. Notice again that in using this pattern for cutting the tapered blanks, the sheet is turned over after each cut. The cutting continues until only the scrap remains. The blanks have been cut to the correct width and taper. They must now be trimmed to length at the narrow end. For this step, a bevel gauge and wrench are needed to make a setup on the front bed of the shear. Move the bevel gauge forward in the T-slot. Remove the front stop gauge from the rack and slide it along the T-slot into rough position. The template is required for this setup also. Place the narrow end of the template square against the lowered knife blade. Line up the bevel gauge with the taper of the template. Clamp the template with the hold down and tighten the bevel gauge in position. Move the front stop gauge flush against the wide end of the template and tighten the front stop in position. After tightening the bolt in the left-hand T-slot, tighten the bolt in the right-hand T-slot. This completes the setup of the front gauges for trimming the blanks to length at the narrow end. Slide the first blank under the blade, back along the bevel gauge, tight against the front stop, and make the trim cut. The trimming operation must also be checked for accuracy. Again, the template is used to make the check. The trim is accurate. The setup can be used to trim the remaining blanks to accurate length. In cutting the trim, as in cutting the taper, the cutting is along straight lines. The gauges, set up with the template and checked for accuracy, ensure that all the pieces will be cut to the same size. The job is now complete. The large sheet has been cut into blanks which match the template accurately. Blanks accurately finished and cut with a minimum of waste reveal the ability of the skilled operator.